back in the good old 2012.
Thomas Jenkins and Narrator sit in office desks, profile to the audience, backs to each other. There's a dim fluorescent fill. Whenever Jenkins is in motion or speaks, an amber light shines over him, and whenever the narrator moves or speaks, a blue light shines over him.
Sometimes I wonder, how many... Well, I guess there's no delicate way to put it. How many murderers and rapists have passed walking to the deli mart on the corner just that day alone?
A reasonable thought, I suppose.
It's the sort of thing I often think about. Earning me strange looks when said aloud, of course, but my thoughts are horrifying, so really it should be expected of me by now.
And why do you think that is?
What, the reason why I have horrible thoughts? Well, probably because of my horrible parents who raised me with hatred. Now my dreams are all traumatizing. Like, for instance, the other night, I helped my ex-wife bury a body.
Well, what's so strange about that? If anything, it's an indication that you and your ex-wife should bury any hard feelings, or the past.
It was under a concrete floor. With shovels. I don't know how we did it, but...
But dream logic is a little twisted.
Indeed. Besides, I can never talk to her again. She's crazy.
Jenkins turns around. Narrator does the same shortly after.
How was your weekend?
I killed a man.
Whoa! How was that?
Well, it was a really long process, to be honest. Almost tiring. You see, it started Friday.
The murder, that is?
Well, the plot of the murder. Really the provocation that brought along the plotting of the murder.
Was it a prostitute?
No, but I can't speak for the man and say he had never traded sexual favors for cash. He was homeless. A common penniless bum. He stank horribly and his clothes were not properly taken care of. I mean to say, I had of course taken into account that he has no means of washing his clothes, but he does have the option of attempting to keep them in decent shape. Perhaps not wear them in water or while he lays in the grass. Though his were nicer than most, I'll give him that.
And this social status is what drove you to the murder?
No, the man was repulsive, but if I went around killing every old pauper and beggar from here to home, we would have a serious investigation on our hands. Though I don't even really know why.
Because all evidence would point to you.
No, I mean, why would they bother? If anything, I'm doing the world a favor. But in this case, I was struck with an opportunity of double jeopardy.
Two bums in an ideal location?
Not double in people, but double in unbearable traits.
The first being that he smelled foul.
He was also out of his damn mind.
Drugs?
I had thought so at first too, but then I took a good ugly look at him. Fat, jolly, what seemed to be clothes in nicer conditions than most of his dredge. I realized he wasn't just another junkie. No, he was a raging lunatic. He was homeless, all right, but something also. He seemed to be slow yet energetic, as if he wasn't following along with what you were doing, but only because he was too focused on what the universe was doing around him. Truly plagued by a mental illness of the most peculiar sorts.
And was it the crazy in him that brought you to murder the poor fellow?
Not quite yet. So on this particular Friday, he comes up to me as I'm walking through the empty parking lot of a bank late at night and long after closing. He comes up to me almost silently, and he began babbling to me. I thought he was trying to rob me while on drugs, but then I assessed the situation and realized that he was using no force and had no weapons on him. A docile creature, yet so destructive to society. Anyway, he begins to beg me over and over, saying, "Excuse me, sir, may I please have your brain?" Over and over again.
Was he looking for a trade? Preposterous.
He just kept saying, "Excuse me, sir, I just need an exchange," as if he were a sad child who had lost his mother. Eventually, he decided to walk past and stop tormenting me, but he had done the damn deed already.
So it was his request of your brain that set you to stop his?
Still not quite yet. It was the situation itself. He spat as he talked, his breath as rancid as the roadkill I would bet he had for lunch. His teeth were half gone and half still there were rotten. His beard had flakes of nasty crumbs and vomit. His hands were greasy, but not with grease, mind you, as his grip coated my arms. And as he walked away, I knew, deep down, that no amount of showers would wash away his filth.
So you killed him for being smelly and dirty? Sure, that seems reasonable.
I thought so.
Both turn to their work. Jenkins perks up his head.
What's your name?
Oh, I'm the narrator.
You don't say. What brings you to the offices of EDCO? Shouldn't you be narrating?
It doesn't pay the bills. And you?
Thomas Jenkins, executive in charge of foreign affairs. Second largest shareholder as well, might I add.
Really? Because there's 2 names on the door. E and D, and you're not one of them.
Emma, the CEO, and Dana, whoever she is, they're not here. Supposedly they're taking some time off due to PTSD.
Because they were trapped in a well for 3 days?
How did you know that?
Maybe because I saw it on television. Or maybe it's because I'm the narrator.
Some narrator. Didn't even know my name.
Oh, I knew your name.
Then why'd you ask?
Well, you asked first, and it's polite to ask back.
I respect that.
They go back to work.
If you're so important, then why are you out here in cubicle hell?
My office is being renovated. I'm putting in a fountain.
That seems unnecessary.
I know! They had to add supports on the flow below just for the weight. Do you have any idea how much that costs?
Probably enough to feed a starving village for 1 or 2 years.
You know, I thought of killing myself. I have. Suit and tie jobs can be just as stressful as any other, and even more so than some. But it wasn't work that made the knife seem ever so delighting to my eye. No, it was the bum.
Ah, yes. The story.
When I returned to that same spot at that same hour, this time with a knife, I came across the loon once again. I knew I would, of course, because degenerates are creatures of habit. And as I approached him, I made no effort to hide the knife because I wanted to see the fear in his eyes so that I would give him enough time to understand why I was going to kill him.
A courtesy for your own pleasure.
A courtesy for everyone's, for his own too. If I killed him without his expressly knowing why I committed such an act, then he would die confused and uncertain. That's something no one should take to the grave. I'm not a monster.
And did he understand?
Of course not. From the moment I unsheathed the blade to the moment I glided its edge along his neck, I could see in his eyes the same blinding ignorance, the same damn jolly twinkle. Of course, this infuriated me more, but now I couldn't even offer this sledge the courtesy of closure.
That's tragic.
Indeed. But the act was to continue nonetheless, so I proceeded to kill him.
And the guilt was what caused you to feel suicidal?
Yes and no. It wasn't the death of this bum that made me sad. It was inevitable that he was going to die, and truly he had it coming for being such a dirty fellow. No, it was the death itself. Knowing that if this big, burly bum could be ended in mere seconds by such a small sheet of metal, what is to become of me?
Why suicide then?
It runs in the family, apparently. My brother was a prime candidate. Half-brother, different father.
Different name?
Clark Bradshaw. We've never met. In fact, seeing as he's the younger brother, I don't even think he even knows who I exist. But I hear he's quite the disturbed man. Wrote these horrifying books about slasher mysteries. Could you imagine? How silly.
What an ominous irony.
And so I thought to myself, if I end my own life and I won't have to worry about someone killing me, and therefore I won't be surprised, complete and utter closure. But ultimately I decided not to.
Why is that?
The bum.
The bum?
His body was still there. If I killed myself, then I would be pinned with his death.
How does that affect you if you're not dead? If you're dead? You wouldn't have to go to jail.
Obviously, reputation means nothing to you.
Nothing means much to me. Not many people even know I exist. This whole conversation is pure coincidence.
I'm sure your existence is as well.
Narrator turns to the audience.
Some think death is just an external wound. It's both physical and emotional. Sometimes we can accept it, and sometimes we take the fear to our graves. We desperately seek closure. That bum, I think, knew of his demise, but seeing as there was no way out, he decided to accept it. To be happy and jolly, and perhaps spread such energy with Jenkins here as to persuade him to rethink his actions. Unfortunately for him, of course, Jenkins is a fucking psychopath.
I spent all of Sunday trying to get rid of the body.
It's not really that hard.
But I wanted to do it properly. Make it fitting. Put the bum in his proverbial place. A river's a guaranteed safe place, but then he might not ever be found.
I thought you didn't want it pinned on you.
It's about the message of things. The act itself, not the consequences. What about this are you not understanding?
Well, the core concept of everything, you do, obviously.
This is a message. A head on a pike, if you will. A warning to the dredge of the streets. I had to make an example of him.
And what did you come up with?
He was a dirty man. So I took him and I peeled his skin.
Jesus Christ! His skin?
I flayed it. I peeled it off of him like the skin of an onion. I took the organs and the bones and blended them into nice, neat little packages of meat and brought them to a nearby pig farm, where I gave the swine what I thought to be a delightful little snack.
Okay, but his skin.
I took 7 chunks of his skin and kept them as dirty as the day he died. And I stuffed them and set them to hang from hangers, at which point I carved the words, "Wash me," into each and piece and filled the scarred lines with dirt to worsen the wounds. Then, once he was primed and ready, I took the 7 hanging pieces of flesh to 7 different laundromats in 7 different dirty parts of the town and left them there to hang. In the morning, the message was clear. I haven't seen a homeless person since.
Jenkins continues to work with a smile on his face, but the narrator is staring at him in silent shock. Narrator packs up his papers and he turns to Jenkins.
Well, it was really something to meet you.
Jenkins shakes his hand and then turns around to work. Narrator stares disgusted at his hand for a long time and looks at the audience.
No amount of showers will wash away his filth.
Narrator starts to walk away but suddenly stops and grabs his chest in pain. He falls to his knees and gropes in agony for a moment before collapsing. Jenkins ignores everything and keeps working. The narrator lays motionless, lights down. Intermission.